ghosty. Enough of that.
The foundation of human control is control of human perception.
We have the new religion of I am offended.
Because they can't experience love, they just go to the dark side.
Those very same people gave us the official story of 9/11.
No, and that's the problem.
Right.
And you know something else? You won't even bother.
They banned me from all the main platforms on the internet, the social media platforms, in April 2020. I was deleted from the mainstream internet straight away in terms of the social media platforms and YouTube. But you still get it out there because, you know, if they're trying to shut you up, then you must be saying something right. And if you're saying something right, then you'll find another way of saying it. And that's what we must do. And what's been great is the way that, you know, necessity is the mother of invention, they say, is that other platforms have emerged as a result of the censorship of the cult-owned platforms. So there's been a lot of good things happen. Well, I've written at great length about the Sabbatean cult, which began in the 1600s, so you can certainly chart it to then, with a guy called Sabbatai Zevi, who was supposed to be the Jewish Messiah. And the Sabbatean cult was taken further on by Jacob Frank in the following century and expanded massively. And Frank and Mayer Amstel Rothschild, the founder of the Rothschild dynasty, because the Rothschilds were called Bauer. They were a Middle Ages occult family. And then Mayer Amstel Rothschild changed the name to Rothschild, which in German, where they lived in Frankfurt, meant red shield or a red sign. And it was based on the Star of David on their home in Frankfurt. And Adam Weishaupt also was involved, as was Jacob Frank, in the creation of what you say, the so-called Bavarian Illuminati. For people who have not come across this, the Sabbateans, or Sabbatean Frankists as they became, are an inversion of the Judaic religion in a sense. It goes back much further. An inversion in this way, when Judaism had a fast day, for instance, Sabbateans had a feast day. Everything was inverted. They interbred with each other obsessively within the cult, and they hate Jewish people. I mean, they hate Jewish people, and especially when Frank came along, they became expert at, but they did before, but after he became involved, became expert in infiltration. They infiltrated the Roman Church. They infiltrated even earlier the Jewish religion. And what happened with Zevi is that he was basically told by the Sultan of the Islamic Ottoman Empire that you either shut up about it being this Jewish Messiah, or because he gathered a massive following for the time, massive, or you convert to Islam. So he converted to Islam, but they didn't really. I mean, a lot of his supporters were aghast at that. A lot of them did it with him. But they became known as the Donma or Donme, which means to turn. And they were people who outwardly appeared to be followers of Islam, but actually were followers of the Sabbatean satanic religion. And I follow it through. I wrote a book called The Trigger, which is a thick book, which looks, first of all, in the first half, at the nonsense of the official story of 9/11. It is so nonsensical, it's childlike. And in the second half, I look in very great detail at who was actually behind it. detailed researching of that this Sabbatean cult was absolutely forefront. And it was the Sabbatean cult, if you go back to Nazi Germany, that was behind the Nazis, because they couldn't. I mean, people say, well, why would people claiming to be Jewish be supporting the Nazis?
Because they're imposters, aren't they, David?
Yeah, because they're imposters, because they would do that to Jewish people because they ate frickin' Jewish people.
Yeah.
And then they were behind, not least the Rothschilds. They were the center of the whole movement of Jewish people out of Europe into Palestine, and they called it Israel. And then I have a chapter in the Trigger called Atlantic Crossing, and that was when this Sabbatean cult moved in on America. And so, if you just look, just as an example, we had the invasion of Iraq based on a lie. We had the invasion of Libya, which removed Gaddafi, which, whatever you say about him, he held the country together. And look what's happened since. It's the Stone Age. And they sought very, very hard and long to do the same to Syria and Assad. And the invasion too, immediately after 9/11, of Afghanistan. Now, I show in the Trigger how this was all orchestrated in the background by this Sabbatean cult. And one of its expressions was the Project for the New American Century, which was a think tank created by, co-founded by a guy called Robert Kagan. In 2004, they had in Ukraine the so-called Orange Revolution, where people like Soros were involved, and they overthrew a president called Viktor Yanukovych, who was a guy who was very much influenced more by Russia than the European Union and the West. And they threw him out in a so-called revolution. What then happened, this is the ludicrous nature of politics, is they brought in another guy, and the Ukrainian people didn't like what the other guy did in his period in office. So they came to another election, and to get this guy out, they had to vote for the other party that was still headed by Viktor Yanukovych. So what they actually did, I went there in 2010 to speak, and I talked to a lot of people about all this. And in 2010, Yanukovych was back in, and they voted him back in because the two-party system meant, well, if you don't, then you get the same guy you don't like, which was put in by, it was an American coup, the 2004 Orange Revolution. And so we come to 2014, and there's another coup against Yanukovych. And he fled then to Russia. Now, the person who orchestrated that coup for America, i.e. for the cult, was a lady called Victoria Nuland. Mm-hmm. Victoria Nuland is the wife of Robert Kagan, who co-founded the Project for the New American Century, which in September 2000 listed a series of countries that they wanted to regime change when the Bush administration of Boy Bush came in the following January. And those countries were Iraq, Syria, Libya, and which followed after Bush came to power, and others followed, like Obama, another bloody fraud he is. And so Yanukovych is thrown out by the manipulations of Victoria Nuland, Kagan's wife, and you see the tape, the leaked tape at the time, around 2014, when she was talking to the American ambassador in Ukraine, and they were deciding who was going to be in the government. When you therefore observe the world from a myopic point of view, all these organizations look unconnected in the world of the scene. They generate events, happenings that appear to be random. But when you start to awaken and connect the dots and see how the tapestry instead of the strands works, how the dots connect, you realize that if you go deep enough in these organizations, whether it's a government agency, World Health Organization, whatever, Silicon Valley, created by this web, then it's not random at all. And these organizations actually are all connected. They head them with either people that know what's going on and support it, or just pathetic people that do what they're told because they're compliant, back to what we were talking about earlier. So the world, once you realize this web exists and these organizations are controlled by the web, it starts to make absolute sense in why things happen as they do.